Okay, look, I know I do this shit a lot, but this tournament may unironically be the most stacked invitational in Melee history. And on top of that, it's happening in Japan, a country that has not held a Melee major in over 20 years. Am I devastated that I can't go because my gallbladder stopped working? Yes. Am I still gonna give you guys all the juicy Melee details so you guys can be ready for this tournament? Also yes, because I love you guys. Here's everything you need to know about Nounsvitational Tokyo. But before we dive into what I even just said, you may be wondering, what the hell is a Nounsvitational and why does it matter? Well, since Summit died, a few orgs have taken up the mantle in hosting invitational style events that let us see players battle it out in an intimate setting for a few days. This Nounsvitational is a 16-player invitational tournament that could produce a lot, and I mean a lot, of unexpected outcomes over in Tokyo. Let me explain. Okay, what? Let me explain? What is this, a YouTube short? God. Anyway, Nounsvitational is arguably one of the most top-heavy invitationals in Melee's history, and that is actually not an exaggeration at all. Shoutouts to this Reddit post for pointing this out to me, but to rattle off the facts, all but one player in this lineup have been ranked in the top 10 or higher post-pandemic, that number only dropping to 14 out of 16 in the 2024 or 2025 rankings. This includes Cody, Zain, Hbox, moky, aMSa, Joshman, SGJ, and Krudo, who are currently ranked in the top 10 as of summer 2025. Jmook, aMSa, Aklo, and Nicki, who were previously ranked in the 2024 top 10, Soonsay and Trif, who were ranked number 9 and 10 in summer 2024, and lloD, who was ranked number 8 in summer 2022. In addition, these 15 players have all earned at least one top 4 placement at a super major in the last year and a half, and not to mention, the odd player out in this, Goodie, is also really good. On top of all of this, and to not completely derail the topic, Ken and Bomb Soldier will be playing a show match there as well, which is the first time they've competed against each other since Jack Garden Tournament in 2005. To quickly touch on event structure, these 16 players will split into 2 round-robin pools of 8, and the top half of those pools will start in the winner's side of a top 16 bracket. What this means is that if you're not in the top 4 placers of your round-robin pool, you automatically start in the loser's bracket, and you're already playing a match that could eliminate you from the tournament at 13th. Looking at the big picture, I think Zain still has a lock on the number 1 rank for the end of the year, so a win or a high placement for anyone else at this event implies more for who can sit in the, say, 2 through 5 slots. Because this event in particular is going to have just so many high-profile matches, there is quite literally an argument for anyone here to both make top 8 or immediately lose at 13th, which is insane to me. So here's a breakdown of both of our groups playing at Nounsvitational Tokyo and why you should be excited about them. Thank you to FlexiSpot, who is paid to be mentioned in today's video. FlexiSpot sent me their E4 height-adjustable desk a couple years back, and I still use it as the main workstation in my office to this day. I have been in need of a new chair though, and as someone who edits video professionally, ergonomics are super important, and the chair you sit in is a worthwhile investment since, you're like in it all the time. FlexiSpot's new C7 Max is honestly sick, and I'm excited to bring it into my new studio setup. It's adjustable for days between the 3D headrest, backrest, lumbar support, seat depth, and 5D armrest. You can set this thing up literally however you want. It has a 0.2-inch latex seat cushion with memory foam, which is great for those long editing or gaming sessions, and it can recline with a freaking footrest attachment, which is so sick. So if you want to up your chair game, you can use my code C730 to get $30 off at checkout. Plus, FlexiSpot is still offering some of their biggest discounts of the year during their Black Friday sale, so it's an ideal time to purchase. And if the C7 Max is a little too steep for you, they also offer the C5 chair with more basic adjustment functions at a more reasonable price point. Thank you again to FlexiSpot for supporting the channel, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Who better to begin with than the big dog? Like I said before, Zain is pretty much a lock for rank 1 at the end of this year, making this his second straight end-of-year number 1 ranking. Despite his rather dominating stance at the top of Melee, what interests me the most about Zain's position in an invitational setting is his unique pain points of sorts that he's shown over the past couple of years. In 2024 and 2025, he has taken losses to very random characters. Donkey Kong, Ice Climbers, a Luigi who called him a bitch, but the matchup I'm most excited for in this group is the runback of Zain versus aMSa, but this time on aMSa's home turf. In 2024, aMSa was a part of a 4-way square of parity between Melee's top brass, with each player serving as a check or counter to another. Zain beat Mango, Mango beat Cody, Cody beat aMSa, and aMSa beat Zain. The 2024 set record was extremely reflective of this too, with Zain only beating the Red Dino at a single set at Nounsvitational last year. The other very, and I mean very important caveat to this is that these two have legitimately never played a set against each other in Japan, aMSa's home country. Remember, this is the first time a major level Melee tournament has happened here in over 2 decades, and I think this is a really big deal. I'll touch more on that in a minute though. Despite Zain's accomplishments this year and his stellar record against the field in his latest first to 50 series, you could kind of still try to bet on him starting the bracket in losers. aMSa is one of my personal favorites to look out for, Hungrybox feels like he's gaining ground, Aklo's Link has broken through in the past, and you never know where someone like a Jmook who hasn't faced off against Zain in a year will end up landing. Atop the other pool we have Cody Schwab, second to Zain in major wins and the most likely contender for global rank 2. Similar to Zain, he's mostly playing for stakes beyond short-term results, looking to pad his stats in terms of his long-term legacy. A win at this Nounsvitational would give Cody his 15th lifetime major victory, which is just one short of Ken at 16. Cody tends to perform quite well in these longer, more drawn-out invitational formats, considering he won Full House this year and the Eggdog Invitational last year. Early losses aren't as punishing in a format like this, and you theoretically get your hardest matchups pushed to the other side of bracket if everything goes according to plan. Not to mention one of his biggest problem matchups in the last few years, Mango, will not be here, so the path is looking pretty solid if I'm being honest. I find this pool pretty interesting for Cody since over half of its participants have actually beaten him recently. Moky, Joshman, SDJ, and Nicki have all taken at least one set over him in the last year. It's not really a bold prediction to say Zain will be the biggest challenge for Cody, since he's the biggest challenge for everyone right now. Across the 9 majors that have taken place this year, it was a Zain and Cody Grand Finals at 4 of them. However, given the nature of the invitational format, I think if Cody can slide past a couple of people who have gotten one over him in pools, the numbers suggest he'll be able to go on a run. The number 3 of this year's Big 3, the grizzled vet that won't say die, Hungrybox, is in a very unique position going into Nouns Tokyo. For all intents and purposes, Hungrybox is the last remaining player of the legendary 5 gods, and he's found himself in a sort of gatekeeping position between the top 2 and everybody else. He has a massive major win under his belt at Genesis X2, but got to play a somewhat favorable matchup for him to get there. For his pool, Zain is still going to be a problem, but given his stature as the breaking point between the top 2 and everyone else, I imagine he shouldn't have too hard of a time getting into the winner's side of bracket. The specific matchups I'm looking forward to for him are Trif, who took him to the brink in a Resident Sleeper matchup at GX2, aMSa, who actually did get to play HBox this year at Gommel, and Jmook, who most recently beat HBox on a bit of a comeback tour. In other fields for this year, I'd say Hungrybox has checked off a lot of boxes. He's beaten his demons Zain and Cody once this year, but they're still very much his demons. As will be the theme for a lot of the entries in this video, those 2 players in particular are going to be a problem, but I think this goes even further for HBox. If he's able to figure them out and show the level of dominance we've seen from him from several years back, it may be a completely revitalized old guard of the game coming for the throne. So moky is technically the latest person to have won a Melee major, doing so at the historic Don't Park on the Grass in 2024, which, again, just watch my other video if you want to hear me rant about tournament ratings, but that's beside the point. I actually met up with moky a couple months back and asked him about his mindset about community culture and in-person events, and he said he was feeling pretty good about this tournament. I think since he had already gotten his first win at Don't Park, some of that pressure had probably been relieved from him in a way. I also have an entire video covering that historic top 4, but I'm assuming you already watched that one if you're here, so let's keep things rolling. Regardless of adding his name to the pantheon of major tournament winners, moky's biggest footnote to attach to this win, and what will remain a consistent footnote in nearly every entry in this video, is Zain. moky has shown at least some level of consistent wins over the current top brass. He was actually up in sets against Cody in 2024, he narrowly lost to Hungrybox in one of the best sets this year at LMMM, and he even got his first ever win on Zain this year at Full House. Thankfully, he gets to dodge Zain in this pool, and he even did quite well out of all of his contemporaries in Zain's first to 50 challenge, so maybe he gets fast-tracked to the winner side of bracket. But in exchange for that, moky has to play against the gauntlet of top foxes in Cody and Joshman, Axe, who has been starting to gain some ground on the field, and an SDJ and lloD who both had beaten him at the start of 2025. I think moky's bracket positioning is actually going to matter a lot for this tournament, so keep an eye on him, but we'll just have to wait and see. Jmook to me is an extremely interesting case study. He was an obvious candidate for top 3 or better in 2023, then had some all-over-the-place results at majors, resulting in a drop to rank 15 this past summer. Maybe it's peaks and valleys, but this year I'm really excited to see what he brings to Japan. Like I mentioned in the Hbox entry, Jmook recently beat him on his march to his season's best placement of 3rd at Riptide, and Jmook is uniquely one of the only players in this entire tournament who has like a reasonable head-to-head with Zain, who's also in his pool. In fact, the lifetime head-to-head is actually Jmook favored at 13 sets to 12. Where things can get a bit more dicey is in Jmook's fluctuating recent results against the middle of the pool. Lifetime, he's even on sets with Aklo, he's even on sets with Trif, and he's even on sets with Soonsay. The negative aMSa set count is also going to be a massive question mark, especially with aMSa's relative inactivity in the back half of this year, so there's a lot that could go wrong or right in this pool. Broadly speaking, the magic number to make it out of pools on the winner's side is 4, so overall, I'm looking forward to seeing what Jmook is able to do. In my Nounsvitational 2024 preview, I mentioned he could have a rough time, and he ended up winning the whole damn tournament, so maybe the holiday season gives him another one. Like I said last year, I'm hoping for an enthralling return to glory. In 2024, Aklo was a player myself and many others considered next up to win a major, especially after moky cracked into the Pantheon at Dome Park. He was beating Zain with Link, he finished the year at a season-high rank 8 in the world, and he got 2nd place at 3 freaking majors in a row. I don't think it would have been all that crazy to say, yeah, he was pretty close to winning a major. But like Jmook, Aklo had a small fall-off in ranking, dropping down to number 16 in the world in the 2025 summer rank. I still think this will be a pretty unique pool for Aklo in that Zain has seemed to make some big strides in the Link matchup, and sometimes these spacey dittos can get a bit hairy. He's even with Trif lifetime, but down in sets to him this year. aMSa has historically been a problem matchup, so I'm not too sure about that one. Once again, 4 wins is the name of the game, so I think for Aklo, he's going to have to find his spots. Okay, aMSa is the player I am far and away the most excited to see here, and it's for a few reasons. Let's start with the obvious. This is the first Melee major in Japan in over 20 years. For the first time in over 2 decades, aMSa won't have to make a half-day trek across the ocean to compete in North America. He won't have to attain a travel visa just so he can stay in Canada for an extended period of time to save on some travel days. He is competing on his home turf against the world's best, and that's freaking awesome. Second, aMSa was this close to being considered the best player in the world in 2022. He finished that year with multiple major wins and was only behind, you guessed it, Zain at the end of the ranking season, who, by the way, is a player aMSa has kind of been clowning on. Here's a wild statistic that means absolutely nothing. When aMSa's at a major, Zain loses, even if they don't play, so, you know, chew on that. But lastly, the reason I'm really excited is because aMSa plays Yoshi, and that's awesome. This player is such an intensely weird wild card that has a solid idea of how to handle Zain, but has maybe not quite figured out the big foxes like Cody or moky. By the numbers, pools can definitely bode well for him, but the problem with these pools for aMSa is that if he does well, he'll eventually have to face Cody or moky on the other side. This leads to like a kind of weird balancing act of course aMSa wants to make it out of pools on the winner's side, but if he does and round 1's into Cody, that's obviously not the best outcome. Okay, now let's move on to our crowdfunded and qualified players. The first of our crowdfunded players is one I'm second most excited to see in Japan, one of my favorite players ever, the legendary Pikachu Axe. Axe's 2025 has been a redemption tour for the ages. He's consistently hovered around the top 10 to 20 range in his over decade-long career, but this season has been incredible for him. He's back within the top 10 at rank 7 this summer, he top 8'd at a bunch of majors, and he snapped an 11-year-long losing streak against Hungrybox. Axe has a difficult Fox pool ahead of him between Cody, moky, and Joshman, and he'll have to go Fox himself to take on SDJ, so I think we're going to see battles as we tend to do for this Pokemon Master. Soonsay was a new addition to the SSBM ranked top 10 in summer 2024, and he's been hovering within the top 15 for a bit now. Cracking the top 10 as the Fox Ditto Master, including wins over Cody and moky in the last couple of years, he misses out on the Fox pool and instead is met with a bunch of weird matchups. I think this could be a bit problematic for Soonsay, as the only Fox players he's going to get here are Aklo and Goodie. That's not to say he's like bad at non-Fox matchups, but I think the head-to-head slants go slightly in his opponent's favor. Like I mentioned with aMSa though, if Soonsay can pull out enough wins to make it into the winner side of bracket, he could get met with an extremely fun bracket path for him with Fox after Fox after Fox. The Australian phenom Joshman was also a part of that history-defining Dome Park top 4, but like all the other non-Cody Fox mains, they're a bit hard to predict. Josh has also gotten extremely close to touching the ceiling with his second place finish at Nouns Bowl this year, so he also enters the conversation as a possible player to be next up to win a major. In terms of his pool, I think things look pretty solid for him. He's shown he can beat Cody and the rest of the field, and Zain is waiting on the other side of bracket for him, so priority 1 is to get out on the winner's side to guarantee yourself an extra round in bracket. Also a part of the history-defining Dome Park top 4 was the German player Nicki. Nicki has a bunch of high points on his resume, like knocking Hungrybox out of tipped off 16 at his career worst placement, but similar to some of our other international competitors, it seems like the constant travel has started to take its toll. Nicki began working full-time again this past September and stated that he'll probably never be able to travel as frequently as he did this summer. As the only Ice Climbers main in this tournament, I am particularly interested in seeing how he handles Zain, should they get to face off. Okay, look, I said it before, but I have a whole video talking about how Melee rates its tournaments and why I think it's kind of bad, but you can argue about this in the comments if you want. Krudo may or may not be a major tournament winner, but by Liquipedia's extremely loose definition, he is not a major tournament winner, or maybe he is. I don't know. It's the way we rate it is bad. Anyway, the other Sheik in the equation here is Krudo, who had qualified from tipped off 16, and he has quietly made his way into the top 10 as of this summer. At that tipped off, Krudo beat Mango and has had a number of good wins in the meantime, including a fucking tournament that should probably be considered a major, but what do I know? What do I know? Whatever. The other player who qualified from tipped off is lloD. His 5th place at tipped off earned him a trip to Japan, but he's surpassed his season high placement with a 4th at Collision just a couple months later. This one is really interesting to me because there are actually 2 Peach mains in this tournament as well, between lloD and Trif. But the 2 of these players play the game so fundamentally different from one another, which can make preparing for the character a little bit awkward. Like the rest of the field, lloD has rarely, if ever, taken sets off of the current big 3. He actually did beat Zain in 2022 at Summit 13, and he beat Hbox at a few online events, of which I've covered in older videos, but I would say those are different times, and lloD is more fighting to try to modernize his approach to this character. He's an extremely defensive and grounded Peach player, which has always made his approach to floaty matchups just super interesting to me. The data suggests that this playstyle can work, but I don't think it's sustainable enough long-term, especially for non-floaty players like Cody, who he's never beaten. lloD is also living the scary life of working a real person job while playing Melee, except he's an orthopedic surgeon and he plays Peach, so I guess his hands will be fine? So I actually interviewed SDJ after they beat Hbox at Gommel and have been planning on doing a small analysis piece comparing the 2 modern top Jigglypuff players, so let me know in the comments if you want to see that video. SDJ qualified into Nouns Tokyo from Fast Falls, a tournament they actually won over stiff competition like Trif, Moth, Aklo, and Joshman. But like I mentioned with lloD to Trif, SDJ to Hungrybox is a pretty similar dynamic. SDJ is willing to go for so many different bets that Hbox typically is not, by virtue of Hbox perhaps just finding the openings in different ways. They're willing to play a bit more lame to get the win, and we saw that with the tense ending to their set against Hbox. Uniquely, SDJ at the time of Gommel kind of looked better positioned to take on Cody than Hungrybox has in the past, but I'm sure the 2 of them are taking notes off of the other to try to defeat this enormous bracket demon that they have. Like Hbox, Zain has and will continue to be a problem for SDJ. Zain's just way too optimized against the character at this point, and I think the Puffs will need something pretty special in order to not get popped. The other qualifier from Fast Falls was our 2nd placer Trif, and 2nd place has been a bit of an unfortunate situation for this player as well. The biggest one, of course, was at GX2, where Trif went on an unreal run to a silver medal, but was stopped by Hungrybox. After that, he got 2nd to Cody at the smaller events Let's Drink the Pool and Smash Factor 12, and then most recently at Fast Falls to SDJ. I really hope this doesn't paint a sad picture. I think Trif is an unbelievable competitor, and I'll go on record and say he's probably a more technical and entertaining Peach to watch than even aMSa was. Where aMSa was surgical and precise, Trif is fast, aggressive, and like fucking crazy. If you have a spare hour, I implore you to go back and watch his set versus Hungrybox at GX2 and just listen for the double jump sound effect because Trif presses buttons, trust me. For this pool, he'll have a chance to get revenge on Hungrybox, but not for keeps, and the get back on SDJ and Cody will have to wait until the main bracket. The matchup I'm actually most excited for in this pool is Trif versus Aklo, since the 2 are deadlocked at 6 set wins apiece lifetime. He's also actually extremely up on aMSa, which can make for an interesting conversation as well. And lastly, we have Goodie, who qualified from the Japanese Last Chance qualifier. There's no getting around this, somebody has to finish last in their pools, and despite Goodie's incredible achievements in Australia, there just isn't that much data for me to work off of here. In fact, the only people she's played in tournament this year who are going to this are SDJ and Jmook. Otherwise, she has an older set versus aMSa at GOML 2023, but that's it. There's almost no tournament history between her and the rest of the field. Now, silver linings, because this can actually be a good thing in some scenarios. Goodie, like I said earlier, is very good. She's the current rank 1 on the Australian power rankings in Josh's absence, and she's beaten good Sheiks, Marths, and Puffs in the past. Fox Dittos can blow up in either direction on a moment's notice, and she does get one against Aklo for this pool. But SDJ isn't in her pool, which was a matchup I was looking forward to seeing again because I don't think that one would be all that insane of an upset given they went Game 5 at GX2. Again, I want to reiterate, this is not a knock on Goodie whatsoever, it's more just that with this volume of top 10 contending players all in one place, getting your shot on one of them may be tough. Like I alluded to earlier, Zain has won the lion's share of majors this year at 5. He's completed an extremely rare 4-peat, and I'd say he's more or less locked in at number 1 for the 2025 end-of-year ranks. For just straight up major wins, behind him is Cody Schwab at 3, Hungrybox at 1, and maybe Krudo at 1 if you count Full Bloom as a major, which, again, just watch the video, the ranking ratings are stupid. Okay, people are talking about 2025 Melee being bland, and I get where they're coming from. It's not that interesting watching the same people win over and over again without any signs of challengers. And in my own personal experience, I honestly feel like the online culture that surrounds this community and how we speak to each other kinda sucks sometimes, so just be normal, please. I do try to see the silver linings though, and that's what this channel is all about. Even though I'll always have love for this game, I think especially now, Melee has somehow been ushering in a brand new generation of players. Kids literally younger than the game itself, which I find incredible. I said it before and I'll say it again. Melee is one of the only competitive titles out there that somehow, against all odds, keeps getting better. The history is what brought me here, and I think that's probably what brought some of you to these videos, and I think that's really cool. For the first time in 2 decades, some of the best players to ever pick up the sticks will throw down in Japan. Every storyline, each their own singular note, playing into the majestic symphony of competition. Melee is forever. Thanks for watching. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Like I said earlier, I'm unfortunately not going to be able to travel to Japan for this given the medical procedure that I just had. I'm pretty bummed about that, but if I can make a watch party work, I'll try to do that with you guys so we can hang out and have a good time. This channel is funded by my Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you to all of you guys who help make these videos possible, especially Avishuastein, Bobby Wasabi, Brent Mukai, Dark Genix, Eric is Cool, Gustavo Cantu Fernandez, James Fabman, Justin Duncan Mills, Kyle Carlin, Marshall Bradley, and Sam Wright. Okay, bye!